Hey guys, and welcome to my latest video in my training series entitled Photoshop Training for Photographers. This is video 3, and we are covering layers. My name is Kelly from Photography Hero. If you're catching this video midstream, maybe go back and watch the others so that you are up to date and I can help you learn how to use Photoshop. Otherwise, keep watching, and thank you for being here. All right, in this video, we are going to talk about layers. And the first thing I want you to understand with layers is imagine that there's a stack of images sitting on the table or a desk, and you're looking at them, and you can see the top image because it's on top, and then the images below are hidden. Maybe you can see an edge or a corner, but because it's a stack, you mostly only see the top one. That's the same thing that happens in Photoshop when we use layers, and we can drop the opacity of a layer so that we can start to see through it to see some of the layers below. We could also erase portions of a layer. But in essence, the stack or the way they're arranged has a lot of bearing on how the layers function or how they are viewed in your specific image. And if you can believe it, there was a time when Photoshop did not have layers as a part of it, and it was a huge addition to Photoshop to get layers. And so I want to go over all of the functions and all the settings that we will use as photographers, especially dealing with layers in this video. So the first thing I want to do is I want to open up this layer right here. And as I've mentioned before in the earlier videos of this course, all of these images are available on a website called unsplash.com. And I have linked to them in my show notes so you can download those directly so that you can work right along with me. The whole purpose of this video training course is to help you learn Photoshop. And especially if you're a photographer, this can be a course that can teach you quite a bit on Photoshop and how to edit for a photographer. So I hope that you'll go back and watch those other videos and follow this course through completely. Leave me comments if there's questions you have. I'm happy to answer them for you. And check out my website, Photography Hero. Again, that website is created specifically to teach you how to be a better photographer, how to learn Lightroom, learn Photoshop, really edit your images as well. So here I've brought up this image. This is from Unsplash, and it's an image of rings. Now the first thing let's learn about is in the bottom right corner of the layers palette is this icon right here. And if you click on it, it will create a new layer. Now this new layer is blank. You can tell because it's got that gray and white checkerboard in the little preview icon right here. So the eyeballs here, either you can hide or show a layer. If I hide this one, you can't see anything because there's nothing on it. This one, if I hide it, you can see it be hidden and come back, and that's my background layer right there. So what I want to do is I want to rename this layer, and I do that by double-clicking on the name, and I am going to call it Color Overlay. Okay, so now my new layer that I just created is called Color Overlay, and it's above my background layer. I want to make this layer pure black. Okay, so how I will do that is I will go over and I will select the Paint Bucket tool. Sometimes that is hidden under the gradient tool. So if you don't see the Paint Bucket tool, it is going to be hidden underneath the gradient tool. Yours might look like this. Click on it and it will let you get to the nested tools. Paint Bucket tool right there. Okay. Then down here, this is your foreground color, and this is your background color. Here is the arrows to toggle between them. And here, clicking this will go to the default. So if I click on this, I could change my foreground color to any color I want. So I change it to this red. You can see my foreground colors change to red. If I click here, it goes back to black and white, which are the default. Now we want black. Okay, with our Paint Bucket tool selected, we can see that the tool options menu up top has changed. we want to make sure that the opacity of the paint bucket tool is set to 100%, and that will make sure that I get a full black coloring here. All I do is come over to my image with this layer selected, I click, and it takes everything to black. So basically now I have a black layer on top of this background layer. Okay, so some things to learn. Now let's learn a little bit more about the layers palette. First, this top area right up here, this has everything to do with searching for different layers. Now, some documents are going to have 50, 60, tons and tons of layers to where you kind of lose track of them. And so if I come up here and I set it to name and I type in color, it's going to show me all of the layers that have the name color in it. And so it finds the color overlay. So I'm going to get rid of that because I only have 2 layers here. I don't have any trouble finding layers. Let me click on this layer. The next thing I want to talk about is opacity. And so I can drop the opacity of a layer. If I go all the way down, my layer is almost see-through. It is less opaque. If I take this back up to a higher number, my color overlay layer is more opaque or less translucent, which means you cannot see through it as much. I'm going to double click here. You see, you could, as I was doing before, you can click on this little arrow and slide between, or you can just double click in here and type your number that you want. I'm going to type in 50%. Okay. All right, and this area right here, these are called blending modes. And this determines how the layer that's currently selected interacts with the layer below it. And so what it will do is it will actually use portions of the image below to cause them to blend together in certain ways. You'll see that some of these selections don't do anything, and then some of them cause different effects. And as you highlight over them, you will see those change. Now, once again, I am using Photoshop CC 2019 on the latest version. So this highlighting above and showing what they do is new to this version. And so if yours aren't doing this, how you can do it is simply select it, see what it does, go to a different one, select it, see what it does, go to a different one, select it, see what it does. And you'll see that each one has a different effect on the image below, or how these two images blend together. Now, I'm not going to really use those right now, and getting used to using those just will come through time, especially understanding what each blending mode does and how it affects how the layers blend together. And we'll learn that as we go further in the course. I'm not going to use one right here. I'm going to actually drop this opacity a little bit more. So let's get it maybe right here. Okay. Now the next thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to create a type layer, and that's over here. You can hit the T key to select the type layer, or just click on it, and I want horizontal type tool. Okay. Again, up here, my menu options have changed. This tells me the font. This tells me the font, different type of font options. I can have a thin font, a black font, bold, whatever. This tells me the font size, if I want it centered or justified. This tells me the font color. Okay, now I'm going to actually change this by clicking on it, changing it to white. I'm going to click OK. If I click on the image with the type tool, it will bring in some generic lorem ipsum text, and I'm going to change this to say sale today. Whoops. Whoops. My goodness. There we go. I'm going to select everything by hitting Command or Control A. So that selects everything. Another way to do it is just to double click within the text. That will select everything. And I'm going to come over here and I want to make it larger. And there's a couple ways I can do it. I can go to their default choices, Photoshop's, or I can type in a number, or my favorite way is to click and drag right here. So I can make this text bigger. I'm going to hit the check mark to accept the changes, and you'll see it's created a new Sale Today layer. I'm going to go to the Move tool, and then I'm going to move this right about there. Now, this is its own layer. The text is its own layer. So I can do the same thing. And I can come through my blending modes and I can watch it blend together. So let's select overlay, and I can actually move it around and see the words or how the words appear change based on where they are located on the image. So this is the Sail Today layer blending in with the ring layer below. Now I don't want to use that. I'm going to go ahead and go to normal. But there's something else I want to show you really quick is down here, this FX. This is called the layer effects area. And so I'm going to select drop shadow, and it's going to put an effect only on the selected layer. So I currently have drop shadow. I can adjust its opacity of the drop shadow. I can adjust its distance. So all of these different things I can do, okay? You'll notice that it now appears right here, and I can hide it or see it. And one other thing is remember, if I adjust opacity, it adjusts everything on that layer. So notice that not only do the words become less opaque, but the drop shadow I put on does as well. Well, that's the difference with fill. If I click on fill and I drop the opacity, notice that the words become less opaque, but the drop shadow does not. And I could take this all the way down, and you'll see my drop shadow has remained, but the words have gone 0% fill. If I did that same thing with opacity, everything disappears. So that's going to be your difference between opacity and fill. These right here are how you would lock a layer. So if I click on that little lock icon appears, and if I come over here and try to move it with the move tool, it will bring up an error, and it will say you can't move it because it's locked. If I unlock it, I can move it anywhere I want to. Okay, so you can see how some of these layer options start to work together. Let me go back to the color overlay, and let's say I want to erase some of this black layer, or this, it's almost a translucent black because the opacity is down to 17%. But let's say I want these rings to shine through brightly, but I want to keep it darker on this outside edge. There's a couple of things I can do. The first one is the eraser tool. So that is the letter E, or over here, it is clicking right here for the eraser tool. Okay, when that is selected, I have opacity, I have flow, and I have smoothness up here. So let's make sure our opacity is 100%. It's a brush eraser, and so what that means, whenever you're dealing with the brush, if you right-click on your image, you have brush options that come up. So I can choose from a selection of different brushes. I can change the size of the brush. I can also change the hardness, or the feather, it's sometimes called, of the brush. So I want a very soft brush. Let me go to a hard brush just to show you what a hard brush looks like. So I have a 68 pixel brush, and it's a 100% hard brush. Let me click. So you can see how I'm creating very hard lines. And we don't want to do that. So if I make this brush bigger, and I come in here and I start to erase, it's really looking bad. So I'm going to undo. Command or Control Z basically does the undo, and I'm just going to keep hitting undo to get rid of those. Again, in the latest version of Photoshop, you can keep hitting Command undo to undo what you've done. If you've got a newer version, or excuse me, an older version of Photoshop, you cannot just continue to hit undo. You can only hit undo once, and then you're stuck. How you have to undo is go over here to the history palette, and this will show you everything you've done with your image. And so I would simply go back in time, if you will, to get rid of what I've done. That's the history palette. So basically the history palette allows you to step back where I began completely, getting rid of everything I've done, or making a couple of steps back. Okay, so back to my eraser tool. I want to be on my Sail Today. Okay, whoops, I'm not where I want to be. Excuse me, I don't want to be on that layer. I want to be on the color overlay layer. But I want to have a soft brush. So let me go there, and now I'm going to paint in. I'm going to even make it bigger. And I'm going to come in here and just paint it to start to have that come back. Okay, so that's what I began with. That is my layer, and you can see by the icon that I have erased the black, and it is just showing right here. You can see that it's at 17%, and you can bring back my sail today with its drop shadow. Now let me bring up these two images, and I want to just show you blending modes again. All right, so I have this image right here. And I want to take this image with Bokeh. Again, these two images links to them are in the show notes, so you can practice and do these things yourself. But I want to get this image onto this image, and I just want this lighter portion of the image to shine through, but I want this darker area to go away. Okay, so how you get an image to be a layer on another image is just simply click and drag it. Okay? And you can see that it's appeared here as another layer. Now, one blending mode that I know, and you should know as well, is right here. Lighten and screen. And what those two blending modes do is they allow the lighter portions of the image to shine through and the darker portions to fade away. Down here is kind of the opposite. And if you notice, we have these little lines that separate the areas. Down here, the lighter portions go away and the darker portions are what we see. Let's go to my screen. Okay, so now I've just added a little bit of bokeh to this, or a little bit of this lens flare. Okay, I can bring it down here. And let's actually keep it up there, but let's say I want some more down here. Let's say I want to duplicate a layer to get a few more of these effects. I can click and drag it onto the new layer icon, and I can just shift it down here. Okay, now you'll see where I have this line starting to appear here. If I zoom out and I hit the transform tool, so if you've been watching these videos, you understand the transform tool. Go back in the earlier videos to learn more about those. I can rotate this so that I can get these lights here in a different spot. Let me adjust where this one's at as well. I don't like that bright one, so I'm going to keep it right there. Okay, so now I've got a lot of them here. If I select them together, I can drop the opacity of them together. Okay, do you see what's happening right there? Love that. So now all I've done is used a blending mode to bring two images together to kind of give this image just a little bit different or a little bit better of a look. All right, now just to continue learning, let's say I want to link these two layers together. So wherever they move together. I can click on this icon right here. Whoops. There it is. And that link layer will show up right here. And now as I move them, let me in fact just select one of them. But as I move them, they both will move together. And this is if you get layers lined up in a certain area and you want them always to be linked together, you just hit that link layer icon. I have this little folder icon down here that will create a folder that I can now put both of these bokeh layers into. So when I hide the folder, they both hide together. Do you see that? I could even name this bokeh. Okay, so I have those separate in their own separate layer right here. I can remove one of them from this so that I just have only this in the folder. This enables you to stay organized within your document. In case you have an image with 30 or 40 layers, having these folders and things just helps you to stay organized. Now, if I wanted to throw one of these layers away or trash it, I just click on it and drag it to the trash can. if I wanted. If I want to undo that, I can either go to the history panel and go back, or I could hit Command Z to undo it. So hopefully you're understanding more and more about the layers palette over here. The last one I'm going to show you, but we're not going to go over, is this one right here, and these are called adjustment layers. These are the same thing as these, and we will go over those in the next video because those are so needed for photographers. So I'm going to close this image out, and the last images I want to bring up are these two right here. So this image, let me get rid of my layers here. This image, this boy is looking off in the distance. Everyone else is looking great. So if I want to move his head, you have learned everything you need to learn to enable you to do a head swap. The only thing maybe that you haven't learned is the marquee tool. So if I was to select the marquee tool, it's right here, and or hitting the M key. The marquee tool allows you to make a selection. Okay. Oh, I'm selecting the wrong head. They wanted the head moved from this image right here. So let me select the new head. I am going to create a new layer of just that selection, new layer via copy. Okay, and you'll notice that now I have a layer of just his head. I can click, let me go to the move tool, I hit the V key, and I drag it onto the new image. I can now close this one down. I don't want to save it. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to bring his head here. Now I want to, before I do any head swaps, I want to make sure the heads are the same size. So let me bring out the guides, which we learned in a previous video. So I bring those out. Okay, let me click on this head. And as I look at it, this head seems larger than this head. So whether I zoomed, whether I stepped closer to him, maybe I cropped before I gave to them the image, whatever happened, this head seems to be larger. So I'm going to shrink it. And you do that with the transform tool, which is Edit, Free Transform, or Command or Control T. And I'm just going to get it to fit a little bit better within these guides, and also kind of just using the eyeball test. So right there, that looks right. Click on the accept. Let me drag it over, and let me drop the opacity of this layer right here. And I'm going to just click on here and type in 50 and hit enter. Another way to do that, just to give you the shortcuts, is on your keypad. If I hit 0, whatever layer is selected, it takes the opacity to 100%. If I hit 5, it takes the opacity to 50%. That is an important keyboard shortcut, one you'll use a lot. All right, so I'm going to bring the head here. I'm going to zoom in. And when I do a head swap, I mostly am trying to line up the shoulders here, because this obviously isn't going to line up, because that's why I'm doing the swap. So let's line up the shoulders, and let me transform it. I'm just going to twist it just a little bit so those line up about right there. Let me arrow key to bring it down just a bit. Okay, let's go right there. I'm going to hit the 0 key to get this layer back to full opacity. Okay. I'm going to hide the guides, which is a Command or Control H, or you can go View. I'm going to do it first, or you could go View, Show, and there's guides right there. Okay. Actually, I did extras. That's my Command H. Hide or show extras. So I hid that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my eraser tool, right? We've learned the eraser. Whenever I have a brush, I right-click to adjust its size. So about that size. Hardness. When I'm not working on strong, heavy lines, I like a soft brush. When I'm working with lines that are strong and straight, I need a harder brush. And you'll see that as we go around. So all I'm doing now is blending these two together. You'll notice that I keep changing the size of my brush, and I'm not right-clicking to do it. I'm doing that by holding down the Control and the Option keys on a Mac. I don't know what it is on a PC. I will look that up, and I will just enter it on the bottom of the screen so you can see what it is. But whenever you're blending, getting the right size of brush to blend together is so, so important. All right, so now see how I'm coming into her shoulder? And these are hard lines, so I'm going to want to take my hardness up just a bit so that I can blend this better. Right about there. Okay, so I've blended her arm, but I have to still go back and blend this area, and I need a soft brush for that. So I'll go back and just kind of blend, and I'm erasing is all I'm doing. Let me see how his arm does. It did well. It blended nicely. Okay, so let me come through here and come up through here. And again, I have a strong line here. Let me try to do it with a soft brush. Ooh, that did it pretty well to where you can't tell much of a difference. And then I just blend through here. Okay, so look at that image. Let me hide this layer, show it, hide it, show it, hide it, show it. So there's a little bit, if you look at his shoulder right here, there's a little bit of a color change, maybe even on his face, just a little bit of a darkness or a brightness change. Maybe this little area right, let me make a smaller brush, maybe this little area right, whoops, hold that, right there to fix that, but nothing else. See, all of these things, you got to remember your client's not going to see the original, so they're not going to be all, hey, I see how this doesn't match up perfectly. They're going to look at it, and that just looks like blurriness behind them. So you got to make sure these areas look good. Okay, so that's it. That is a head swap done. You now, through these 3 short videos, can do a head swap. Now, there's some more difficult head swaps, and as we learn other tools in Photoshop, you'll learn how to do those. But a very easy head swap you can now do. So hopefully you're learning a lot from these videos. Hopefully this video taught you a lot on layers to understand the benefit and how they can help you. Questions should go in the show notes, or if you're on my website watching this from my blog page, photographyhero.com, comments on the post. I will answer those for you. I really want you to learn Photoshop. And so any ways you can help me know how to better teach you and help you better learn this, I'm happy to listen to and do. Again, my name's Kelly at Photography Hero. Subscribe so that you can continue to get notified when I put out videos. And as you are moving through this Photoshop class, go ahead and move to video number 4. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.